What's up, boys and girls, Lambo here, and in today's video we're gonna have a Zerg Academy video, and more specifically I will be talking about the importance of having a good game plan. So first of all, I wanted to just explain how much easier the game will become if you guys actually already have a plan in mind as you're starting the game. And how that even is a possibility, because Zerg is a reactive race, as I always say on stream. Very often when you guys give me questions, I always say it depends. Because you guys ask me very general questions, and it depends on what my opponent is doing and on what happened so far in the game. So how can you go into a game plan how can you go into a game with a game plan in mind already as a Zerg? I think game plans in general can be very general, especially on lower levels. Whereas later on, you guys can have much more refined game plans depending on what your opponent is doing. So, for example, let's say if you're below diamond level, you guys can go into a game against Protoss and say, okay, I will try to get up to 66 drones as soon as possible, and then I will try to get towards a maxed out supply as soon as possible with Roach Hydra. Roach Hydra shoots up, it shoots down, and the units have a lot of HP, so it is probably one of the easiest game plans you can have, and it's decent against most things. Now, at some point, you might want to change that, because it's simply not good against if the Protoss is playing correctly, but at first, having these kind of game plans simplifies the game a lot. The moment you don't have to think about what you have to do during the game, and the moment that happens, you can focus a lot more on all the other things in the game, like not being supply blocked, hitting your injects, spreading creep, spending your money, swinging your larva instantly, and all of this will become much easier the moment you don't try to think, okay, now he has this unit composition. What did the streamer again do that I was watching recently? What was the unit composition that I want to build? So the lower your level is, the more general I think your game plans should become. So let's say against Protoss, an easy example, as I said before, you just try to get to 66 drones as early as possible, and then you just attack the moment you approach a maxed out supply with Roach, Ravager, Hydra. Now, if you want to refine this, you can. For example, let's say your opponent opens with a Stargate opener. Then you go into the Roach Hydra attack. If your opponent opens with a Twilight or a Robo opener at first, just go with Roach Ravager. There is no need for Hydras because you don't need anti-air, right? So this is how you can evolve your game plan. Your game plan also doesn't need to be mid-game timing. It could be early game all-ins. Like if you watch one of my Free on My Friday videos and you're like, okay, I really want to play that, then try to play that, and then afterwards also have a game plan in mind for what happens if it fails. But in general, you guys can also obviously all in. You guys also, if you enjoy playing late game more, you guys can also play for the late game, even though I wouldn't suggest it if you guys just want to gain MMR. Playing late game is very fun from times to times, especially if you just enjoy fighting with big armies, right? If you enjoy fighting with big armies, having big epic fights with multiple different units, and you enjoy that, sure, just go for a late game. And then have a game plan in mind how you get there. So for example, if you're playing against the Protoss, you can always try to play, let's say, Ravager Bane into Broodlords. That's just an example. Roach Ravager Bane into Broodlords. Or you guys can always go Roach Hydra Lurker, and then eventually add Corruptors and Vipers later on into the game. And that could be your general game plan. That's also fine. I'm gonna go through some other game plans against other races, especially for the lower levels at first again. So let's say in ZVZ, one of the game plans that I would suggest could be to just get up to 66 drones as early as possible again, off of like Ling Bane Queen, and all you do is scout and play defensive, and then once you have the 66 drones, you mass units, and you just make Roach Ravager. The moment you're maxed, or the moment you hit an upgrade timing, you start trading your units. That would be a game plan for normal Roach versus Roach ZVZ, and that's a fine game plan. You guys can also go for 2-base timing instead. If you don't want to play the Ling Bane phase, you guys can also completely skip that. You just need to adjust to your own strengths and to whatever openers you guys feel good with. And then, for example, against Muta, obviously your game plan needs to change. So at that point, scouting is necessary, whereas against Protoss, not as necessary, really, to get better. So against Zerg, let's say you don't see him going roaches, you see a lot of Lings and Banes, you think it might be Muta. Let's say an easy game plan would be you go for Roach, Hydra, and Faster of 3 base 66 drones, and then you try to attack the moment you're maxed out. Very easy game plan. You have something in mind that you can try to perfect, and as long as you just like, you're never gonna lose because of the game plan, basically, especially on lower levels. You're always gonna lose because of macro, micro, mechanics, all that sort of stuff. So just try to focus on improving that at first, is basically what I'm saying. If you guys want to play Lingbane Muta, then you just go Lingbane Muta instead, and your game plan can be you go Lingbane Muta. Against Muta, you try to saturate your gases as early as possible, and then try to win the Muta fight. Again, against Roach, if you go for Lingbane Muta, you guys can go up to a drone count that you like to macro with. Let's say usually on a pro level this would be 90 to 100 drones, but on lower levels where you might not inject as well, maybe stay at around 80 plus drones, and then start attacking with Banelings everywhere, and start attacking with the Mutas, start trying to trade as effectively as possible. That could be your game plan going into it. Against Terran, you guys can also do whatever you want based on unit compositions. You guys can go for a Roach Ravager 1/1 all in. Like this is the easiest. This is gonna be the one that would be the most successful for you guys, because you guys can try to learn the early game properly, get 66 drones, get 1/1 Roach, and then just attack. And the reason it's that easy is because it works against both Bio and Mech. You can make this work against Mech. If they go for battle cruisers, you add some Corruptors, and then also hit the timing with Roach Ravager. So the more general your ideas and the better it is against a multitude of things, the better your win rate is gonna be. You might not understand the game because of it, but the more you get better, the more you also will understand the game. You guys can also watch videos or ask whenever you don't understand something. And you guys can refine your game plans later on. The moment you feel like it's not working anymore, or the moment you want to learn a little bit more, then learn more responses. So against Terran, for example, a more optimal way of playing would be to go any Lingbane composition. Lingbane Hydra, Lingbane Muta, Lingbane into Ultra, or Lingbane into Lurker, one of those. And then your game plan can be, let's get up to 80 drones as early as I can, and then just go for mass Lingbane. And then the game plan can be, you wait until your opponent moves out, and then you engage him. Or you wait until your opponent moves on creep, and then you engage. Or you wait until your opponent moves out, and then you go for a mass counterattack. That's also fine. That's a fine game plan to have. Just make sure that you know what your winning conditions are. And I think the best in general, especially on lower levels, is the moment you approach maxed out supply is usually where your power spike will happen. If you don't naturally know when your units will be better than your opponents, so either you hit an upgrade timing or you hit a maxed out supply, usually I think maxed out supply is where you guys can start trading effectively. And then eventually you guys will learn, okay, my opponent is just sitting here and I can just outmine him, he's just turtling with mass tanks. Maybe I shouldn't run into him. That's the stuff that comes later, and then you can adjust the game plan during the game, but having something in mind at the start helps a lot. So now, how do we refine this eventually? If we get to a level where maybe you can't just go Roach Hydra anymore against the Protoss, because maybe he has Colossus and we actually need to start scouting, or what if he gets out Storm in time and he has a lot of cannons? Or he goes for carriers and the timing, for some reason we don't have enough units because we made too many roaches. At that moment in time, you need to start learning to scout a little bit and follow basically the stuff that I'm talking about in the guides, but that will come very, very late. I'm pretty sure I could get to Grandmaster with simply just maxing out on Roach Hydra and attacking a Protoss every single game. Like, I could beat Protoss and to Grandmaster easily with that. Obviously that's because I also understand all the early games and pretty much will get ahead every single early game, but that just goes to show that you can get very far with very, very basic strategical understanding of the game. But eventually what will happen is you guys will obviously get more interested in the game. I think that's also... always try to go for whatever you think is the most fun, not for whatever you have the best win percentage with. For some people, winning is fun, so you guys can also just all in every game. That's completely fine by me. But I think don't force yourself to play a style that you don't like. So for example, let's say lurker turtling for some reason would be the best Zerg style, but you don't enjoy just sitting there and turtling with lurkers, then don't do it. Or let's say right now against Protoss, all-inning is very, very strong, but you prefer playing the later stages of the game, try to get good at it. I think the more you have fun with the game, the better you will become, and that's very important. Either way, back to the refining of the game plans. Eventually you will have to scout and react a little bit. That will already be the case on very basic levels. As I said before, against mech, for example, you can't just stay on Lingbane compositions, or you need to start adding corruptors for battle crews, so those are very obvious ones. But for example, later on against you scout a Robobay, you can have a different composition in mind. For example, against Robobay you usually go Ravager Bane, or you go into lurkers very fast, and those are usually the two compositions that you go into. So either Ravager Bane or Roach Ravager into lurker, not Roach Hydra Ravager. It's Roach Ravager and then lurkers. Hydras are useless in that case. Likewise, do you need to adjust maybe a little bit more specifically to different kinds of mutas? I told you guys to, as a basic game plan against mutas in ZVZ, you guys can go for a 3 base max out with Roach, Hydra and Faster. The reason I'm suggesting this is because you can stay on only 3 bases. That's a lot easier to defend than 4 bases, but if your opponent opens with the early 4th base himself, you are supposed to get your 4th base as well. So at that point you guys can add a 4th base against the early 3 base muta when they also have their own 4th base and try to start defending that. Or you guys can also start experimenting with going up to lurkers very fast and just defending with Roach Bane, and then going up to an early hive and then adding lurkers, like the proper way of playing against muta. But this will be a lot harder and you will lose a lot more games, but this is stuff that you can experiment later on. Either way, the main point that I was trying to make with this video is that you guys don't always need to know the exact response to whatever is happening. Very often when you guys send me in the replays and you told me you don't know what to do, I can find 30 mistakes in the early game and you guys just already die in the early game sometimes without even noticing. You guys get very far behind because you guys very often take your gases too early, you guys very often tech way too early, you guys don't drone enough, you guys don't spend your larva, and I think fixing that stuff is a lot easier when you already have a game plan in mind, because then you don't need to worry about it during the game. And I think that will make you guys improvement curve a lot, go up a lot faster, which is obviously what I'm here for you guys with the YouTube videos. Anyway, if you guys have any questions, you guys can leave a comment below. Always make sure to subscribe and click the bell and stuff like that. And if you guys ever don't know what game plan you should go for, you guys can ask me while I'm streaming. You guys can also ask me and other Zerg players in my Discord. And yeah, I hope this helps. I really do. And yeah, that's it. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.